caution to the wind and say, if we don't finish Midsummer Night's Dream today, the hell with it. We'll finish it when we finish it. And if we only get through 4 plays the entire semester, then, you know, that's how it goes.
Will we still have access to your previous recordings on YouTube after the fact?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm being facetious. We'll get through a lot more than 4. We may not finish Midsummer Night's Dream today, but I'm not going to skip what I consider to be important stuff to get through it, okay? So, we left off the other day. Hold on a second. Back that up a little bit to give the screen a little more room. We were in Act 2, Scene 1, towards not quite the end. Page 159 in my version, Act 2, Scene 1, briefly alighted over lines 146 to roughly 188 or so, where Oberon instructs Puck to go around the world, find love and idleness, and extract a flower, a blossom, or some for him. And he tells Puck and us what he's going to do with that. Okay? And I'm going to come back and pick up on this, which I kind of skipped over the other day. 177, or 176 maybe. Having once this juice, I'll watch Titania when she is asleep and drop the liquor of it in her eyes. The next thing then she waking looks upon, be it on lion, bear, wolf or bull, on meddling monkey or on busy ape, she shall pursue it with the soul of love. Okay? That is with the innermost essence of love. And before, that's air, I take this charm from off her sight, as I can take it with another herb, I'll make her render up her page to me. And he says, but who comes here? Nice little stage direction, verbal stage direction on Shakespeare's part to prepare the audience, because once he says that, people start coming out the other door. And he says, I am invisible, even though we can still see him. And in comes Demetrius with Helena following him. Okay? I love thee not. Notice, short, simple, declarative. Therefore pursue me not. Where's Lysander and Hermia? Now, what did Helena, in her little soliloquy, tell us she was going to do?
Tell Demetrius.
She was going to tell Demetrius exactly what Hermia and Lysander were going to do, so that he would rush out to the wood to stop Lysander from taking Hermia to his aunt's house to marry her. Notice the language I just used kind of implied Hermia didn't have any agency or power. She does. She's doing this of her own free will, okay? Hence, get thee gone. Follow me no more. You draw me. Doesn't mean like pen and paper. What does she mean by draw?
Like I am drawn to you.
Attraction. We're going to hear the language of magnets and metal later on. You draw me, you hard-hearted adamant. Like, you attract me to you, and yet you are hard-hearted. But yet you draw not iron. Notice the two uses of the verb. Draw, like pulling a sword out of its sheath. For my heart is true as steel. Shakespeare continues the metaphor. Leave you your power to draw, and I shall have no power to follow you. What do we know about Helena and Demetrius?
They dated before, right?
Kind of, that's one way of putting it.
He wooed her, basically.
To use Lysander's words, he wooed her. He gave her rhymes, tokens, songs, the whole 9 yards. Okay? And we were told by Lysander, she is madly in love with him. Notice how this little passage comes immediately after what? After Oberon says, when Titania wakes, she will be madly in love with whatever, okay? That's what's already happened to Helena. Only she hasn't had something put on her eyes to trick her. Demetrius, do I entice you? Now, what's one answer to that? Yes. How does he mean it?
Am I doing this intentionally?
Exactly. Because she's going, you're just very being. It entices me. It draws me. Okay? Do I entice you? Do I speak you fair? Do I talk nicely to you? Or rather, do I not in plainest truth tell you that I do not nor I cannot love you? Do not, present tense, present action, cannot is different. Cannot means what?
Unable.
Unable and unwilling. And even for that, I do love you the more. What's Helena's problem? Lysander used one word 3 times in his description of Helena's love towards Demetrius. Doting, doting, doting. When you dote on somebody, what has happened to this faculty?
Gone.
It's gone, man. You're just so use whatever term you want. Infatuation, puppy love, stalker mentality, whatever it is, The more you beat me, I will fawn on you. What could this be an example of? Use 21st century terminology. This is almost like Stockholm Syndrome. Where someone who is kidnapped and held hostage comes to, after a period of time, defend the person who has kidnapped him or her. Okay? Named after an incident literally in Stockholm. It could also be indicative of what? Who often suffers kind of Stockholm Syndrome? Battered wives, battered girlfriends. Someone goes and says, you got to leave him. I can't. He loves me. He only does this win. And then, you fill in the win, and it turns out, there's an hour of the day when he doesn't beat me, but it's that hour that makes everything. She says, I am your spaniel. The more you beat me, I will fawn on you. Use me but as your spaniel, your dog. Spurn me, strike me, neglect me, lose me. What's the import of her words? Everything she just described is an action, right? An action by whom, to whom.
Demetrius too.
Which means she receives what from him? Bingo.
Just look at me, man.
It's just give me some attention. I don't care what. Okay? This is an example. I don't have room for it because my arm doesn't reach anymore. This is part of a Petrarchan convention. Petrarch, 14th, 13th, can't remember exactly, 13th or 14th century Italian poet who fell in love with a woman named Laura, not his wife, and wrote sonnets about her. And in these sonnets, these little love songs that he wrote about her, he described kind of the full spectrum of the experience of love, right? And he came up with this terminology that becomes called Petrarchan conventions, because they're named after him. And one of those is, the beloved male has the lover male has a beloved, the woman that he loves. And he uses terms to describe his experience of that love, okay? And many times in Petrarch's sonnets, that experience is one of neglect. That is, she doesn't return his love. And in the real story, Laura never knew Petrarch existed. I mean, it's like, she was over there, and he was over here, and he was shy and calm. If I remember correctly, he was already married. And he looks at her, and he just kind of worships her from afar. And every now and then she looks in his direction and smiles, and suddenly his day is wonderful. The sun has come out from behind the clouds. There's a rainbow in the sky. There's warm, fuzzy little puppies and kittens those aren't terms that he used, those are mine. But he comes up with this language, okay? This language is also in there. When he doesn't have any indication that she knows he exists. It's like, come on, just look, spit on me, even. Why? Because that acknowledges my existence. That at least lets me know that you know I am. All right? Only give me leave, unworthy as I am, to follow you. That not to be side by side, to crawling on my hands and knees behind you. What worser place can I beg in your love, and yet a place of high respect with me, than to be used as you use your dog? Just let me be near you, is all she's saying. Okay? Little side note at this point. In the course of the play, fairly soon, Act 3, we're going to get descriptions of Helena and Hermia. Okay? The play that my wife and I saw in 2002, the casting was perfect. Helena was tall and willowy and drop-dead gorgeous. Hermia was shorter, dark hair, pretty, but not drop-dead gorgeous. Okay? Helena was your model of an Amazon, as it were. This is going to be important later. But it's important now because Demetrius looks at her and he doesn't see any beauty there. Whereas everybody else at Athens goes, there's a looker. So, Demetrius, tempt not too much the hatred of my spirit, for I am sick when I do look on thee. Wow, that's low, man. That's, okay? And I am sick when I look not on you. Now, when she says I'm sick when I don't look on you, what kind of sickness is she talking about? Love sickness. Love sickness in Shakespeare's day in the Middle Ages was an actual medical diagnosis. You can suffer for love. And I'll bet almost everybody in this room would probably go, if you really thought honestly, look deeply in your heart, go, yeah, there's some truth to it. When you really love someone and they, what's the basis of all country music? They rip your heart out and stomp that sucker flat. Oh, shut up. A country must have a people? Siri's gone off the deep end. I am sick when I look not on you. You do impeach your modesty too much. What does he mean? You take your modesty, your maidenhood, your maidenhead, your virginity, you're risking it here. How so? To leave the city. What city? Which is governed by what? I don't mean Theseus. What does Athens, the setting signify? What does it convey? Civilization, order, rule, law, morality. To leave the city and commit yourself into the hands of one that loves you not. To trust the opportunity of night. Notice, night, not daytime. In the ill counsel of a desert place. He doesn't mean desert Sahara. He means desert away from the city. The wood. Where there is no law, there is no morality. Or, let me put it this way, what morality is there? Only the morality you bring within you. And he's saying, you and I are here. We're alone. Nobody can hear you. In the ill counsel of a desert place with the rich worth of your virginity. What does Demetrius just introduce? What idea has he just introduced? How many of you are familiar? I know you are. How many of you are familiar with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight? Anybody? Okay. If you took my Brit Lit 1 course, you're too familiar with it probably, because I spent a lot of time on it. There's a scene in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight where Sir Gawain is being tested by the knight of this castle, by the knight's wife, the lady of the castle. She goes up, sneaks up into his room. She does this 3 days. And on the second day, I believe it is, she comes in and she says, my husband's away. All his men are away. All my women are away. We're up here in this topmost room of this tower. I've locked the door. And you're the man every woman would want to have. And I'm just a silly old thing here who's totally powerless. And you could take what you want. And it's kind of like she goes, you could take what you want, and I couldn't resist you. And what lady would resist you? And he's like, damn, lady, in my country, meaning in the civilized world, men don't do that. She's saying, rape me. Okay? He's bringing up, Demetrius is bringing up the possibility of that. Okay? Look at her response. Your virtue is my privilege. What's meant by privilege? Is there a footnote down there? Safeguard, warrant. She's saying, I trust you implicitly. Why? Because of his, by her, implied virtue. She says, you have something in you that will not allow you to do what you've just alluded to. Just like in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, Sir Gawain does. Your virtue is my privilege. For that, because of that, because of your virtue, it is not night when I do see your face. She's saying, Demetrius, wherever you are, this is a Petrarchan image, by the way, wherever you are, there is sunlight. Why? Because the sun is shining on him? It's the light of the virtue within him. What's meant by virtue? All the quote-unquote Christian virtues. Temperance, modesty, truth, justice, loyalty, love, faith, all those things. Therefore, I think I am not in the night. Nor doth this wood lack worlds of company, for you in my respect are all the world. And we could jump to a poem, several poems, by John Donne, contemporary of Shakespeare's, who essentially says in several of his poems, when the speaker and the speaker's beloved are in the room together, it doesn't matter if anybody else exists. Why? Because that's the world. Everybody is subsumed into those two. Shakespeare kind of does the same thing in one of his sonnets, Sonnet 130. Not 130. 131, 133, something like that, where he's trying to talk, the speaker is trying to talk the woman beloved into having sex with him. But she won't, apparently. And he says, come on, all you need is one man. You have one man, then you've essentially had all men. I mean, how different are we really? But his point is, you are not all women. You are unique, you are special, blah, blah, blah. Nor doth this world lack worlds of company, for you in my respect are all the world. Then how can it be said I am alone, when all the world is here to look on me? All men are in you, Demetrius. I'm not alone. I'll run from thee. In other words, hello. He's not getting through. And hide me in the brakes and leave thee to the mercy of wild beasts. She says, run where you will. The wildest beast hath not such a heart as you. She's just turned the tables. How? Okay. First, she's praising him up one side and down the other. And then he says, I will abandon you to the wild beasts. And then what does she say about the wild beasts? They can't be nearly as wild as you. She doesn't mean wild in some weird, way. How does she mean wild? Cruel. The wildest beast couldn't be more cruel than you are. She says, the story shall be changed. What story? Apollo flies and Daphne holds the chase. The old myth of Apollo and Daphne. Apollo chased Daphne, and when he finally caught her, she turned into a tree because she didn't want to be raped by him. Really doesn't stop the old Greek gods, by the way. Tree, swan, bull, if it's alive. The male gods will try to have sex. Yeah, Juno pretty much and Hera pretty much do the same. So, Demetrius, let me go. Okay? So, Demetrius leaves, and Helena leaves. She says, I'll follow thee and make a heaven of hell. Never noticed that before. I've been teaching this thing for over 30 years. That is probably the source behind John Milton's Satan saying, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. The mind can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. Oberon comes forward. Okay, remember, Oberon's standing somewhere on the stage while all this is happening, but he's invisible. Oberon now steps forward. Okay? Little soliloquy, 2-line long. It's not that important. Other than, he's not really revealing some deep innermost thought. Fare thee well, nymph. What's a nymph?
A nature spirit.
Nature spirit, a goddess. Lower level goddess, but a goddess. More than a human. On rank with the fairies. Fare thee well, nymph. Ere he do leave this grove, thou shalt fly him, and he shall seek thy love. Love and grove rhymed in Shakespeare's day. Okay? So what has Oberon just told us? Oh, he's going to get it. He's going to want you so bad that you will run away from him and he's going to chase you forever. Okay? Puck comes in. Puck gives him the flower. Okay? And Oberon tells him where Titania is sleeping. And he says, I'm going to go up to her while she's asleep and anoint her eyes. He gives some of the juice of the flower to Puck and tells him, a sweet Athenian lady is in love with a disdainful youth. Anoint his eyes, but do it when the next thing he espies may be the lady. Thou shalt know the man by the Athenian garments he hath on, effected with some care that he may prove more fond on her than she upon her Louvre. And look, don't meet me ere the first cock crow. Okay? He's got his directions. What are his directions? They're pretty clear. Put the juice on his eyes so that when he awakes, the first thing he sees will be her. 2-2. We have Titania come in with all her train of little fairies. Okay? They talk back and forth. We're going to skip a bunch. And the fairies lull her to sleep. That's apparently what they do every night. They sing her to sleep. And then comes Oberon. What thou seest when thou dost wake, do it for thy true love's take. True love take. Love and languish for his sake. Be it ounce or cat or ounce, actually, or cat or bear, pard or boar with bristled hair. In thy eye that shall appear when thou wakest, it is thy dear. Phrase we used the other day. Where is love? In the eye of the beholder. It's not something floating around out there. Lysander and Hermia come in. Okay, Oberon leaves. Who doesn't leave? No, Puck's already gone. He's looking for Demetrius. Titania's asleep on the stage. He doesn't anoint her eyes and she gets up and leaves. She's sacked out now for a fairly long time on the stage. Okay? Lysander and Hermia come in. And Lysander says, "Fair love, you faint with wandering in the wood." Go ahead. He says, "You're tired from all our walking. And to speak truth, I've forgotten our way. I don't know how to get to my dowager aunt's house. We'll rest us, Hermia, if you think it good, and tarry for the comfort of the day. Let's sleep here for the night, wait for the sun to come up, when I can find my way. Be it so, Lysander, find you out a bed, for I upon this bank will rest my head." It's the same bank that Titania, sorry, I gotta keep all the characters straight, that Titania is sleeping on. Okay? Lysander, okay, so notice what Hermia said. You sleep over there, I'll sleep over here. Lysander, one turf shall serve as pillow for us both. One heart, one bed, two bosoms, and one troth. No. Let's sleep together. Why? One heart? How one heart? They're in love. One bed for one heart, two bosoms, two bodies, that's what's meant by bosoms, okay? And one troth. One troth. Literally, that's truth. But what does it mean? Pledge. What have they pledged to each other? That they will get married. He's like, come on, we're going to get married really soon, like tomorrow if we can find my aunt's house. We can go ahead and sleep together. Is he talking about intercourse? No, he's not. He's talking about let's just lay down next to each other. Hermia, however, says, "Nay, good Lysander, for my sake, my dear, lie further off yet. For my sake, for my well-being. You sleep over there, I'll sleep over here. Do not lie so near." Why is she saying for my well-being? What does she mean by my sake?
Like her character.
Her character, her morality, her virginity. Okay? What will people say, in other words?
Reputation.
Her reputation. Of course, where are they? And who else is around? No one. Who's going to know, right?
The own morality within it, like you said.
Her virtue, her sense of her integrity, okay? For my sake. Now, it could be all of those. There could be another reason that no one has addressed. What might she be telling us? Go back to Theseus' comments to her after Aegeus brings his charge, and she asks Theseus, "I don't know why I'm so bold, but tell me what I can expect." And he gives her three options. 1, marry Demetrius. 2, become a nun. 3, die the death. What does he say about the middle one, becoming a nun?
Virtue for life. Virginity for life.
And how does he introduce that? He says, look within. Know your blood, your desires. You take that with this, and I think Hermia is saying, Lysander, you better stay over there. Why? Possible. I'm not saying this is the case. It's possible she doesn't trust herself. She's saying, I know my blood, which is why she can't become a nun. And she already said she wasn't going to yield her virgin patent up to Demetrius. The implication is, but I will Lysander. Lysander, no. You misconstrue what I said. Take the sense, sweet, of my innocence. The sense, the soul, the meaning of my innocence. He means of my innocent talk. Love takes the meaning in love's conference. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I meant that my heart unto yours is knit, tied together. We are now bound, so that but one heart we can make of it. Two bosoms interchained with an oath. I do, I do. So then, two bosoms and a single troth pledge. Then by your side, no bedroom me deny. He means no bed space. Let us lie bosom to bosom, body to body. For lying so, notice Shakespeare's pun. Samuel Johnson said Shakespeare never met a pun he didn't like or use. And that was one reason Samuel Johnson quibbled about, he didn't like punning. A pun is kind of the lowest form of joke. Okay? Shakespeare loves them. If he can find something to pun on, he'll pun on it. Okay? For lying so, meaning side by side, I do not lie. I don't intend any more than sleeping. Lysander riddles very prettily. I know what you mean, Lysander, is what she's saying. Now much be shrew my manners and my pride, if Hermia meant to say Lysander lied. I wasn't saying that you were lying. And I think that reinforces my last option for what Hermia meant. It's herself she may not trust. But, gentle friend, for love and courtesy lie further off in human modesty. Such separation as may well be said becomes a virtuous bachelor and a maid. So far be distant. And good night, sweet friend. Thy love ne'er alter till thy sweet life end. A paraphrase of, till death do us part. Lysander, amen, amen to that fair prayer. And then in life, when I end loyalty, I will die when I am no longer loyal to you. Okay? They fall asleep, separated by a short distance. Puck comes in. Through the forest have I gone, but Athenian found I none. On whose eyes I might approve this flower's forces during love. Night, who's that? He sees what? An Athenian man, swain, and an Athenian maid. See, what was it Oberon said?
You'll know him by his Athenian garb.
Athenians! This must be them. And so, he leans down, applies the love juice to Lysander's eyes. When thou wakes, let love forbid, sleep his seat on thy eyelid. So awake when I'm gone, for I must not Oberon. And in come Demetrius and Helena, running. They go back and forth. Demetrius leaves. Helena stays. Why? Why did Hermia and Lysander stop for the night? Okay, that's one reason. That's the second reason. Lysander, because Hermia was tired. Helena is tired. Okay? I'm out of breath. Okay? So, happy is Hermia wheresoe'er she lies, for she hath blessed and attractive eyes. Notice, she doesn't see Hermia. We're not told why. Could be because you're out in the middle of the wood and it's nighttime and there's no moon. So she just stays there and talks. And then she sees. But who is here? Lysander on the ground? Dead or asleep? I see no blood, no wound. And she goes down, Lysander! Notice she doesn't see just a few feet away Hermia sleeping. Lysandra awakes when she says, "If you live, good sir, awake and run through fire, I will for thy sweet sake." Transparent Helena. Do you have a gloss for transparent? Radiant, pure, like light shining through her. Transparent Helena. Nature shows art that through thy bosom makes me see thy heart. What's he mean by seeing her heart? You know, the prophet Jeremiah said the heart is dark and deep and rotten. Is that what he means? Mm-mm. Hers is what? Beautiful, golden, pure. Why? Because of her virtue. So, he asks, "Where's Demetrius?" Oh, how fit a word is that vile name to perish. And she's like, well, stop. What though Demetrius love your Hermia? What the? Hermia still loves you. Be content. In other words, you found the greatest thing in the world, which is love. Love. You've got it made, man. Be happy. Content with Hermia? No. I do repent the tedious minutes I have with her spent. What does tedious mean, literally?
Repetitive, boring.
Time wasting. Ooh. He repents the time wasted spent with Hermia. Not Hermia, but Helena I love. Who will not change a raven for a dove? What color is a raven? Black. What color is a dove? Generally they're white. Okay? We get a bit of description here. Should Hermia be played by a black actor? Bear in mind, Shakespeare's day, all the actors are male. Okay? So all the women characters are played by men. They're generally played by younger men, teens, up to 20 or 21 at the latest, down to as young as 12 or 13. Okay? But all the female roles are played by men. So we're going to see, for example, in the next play, we're going to see the character of Rosalind in As You Like It, who's played by a man, who then, in the course of the play, will put on a disguise to play a man. So you have a man pretending to be a woman, pretending to be a man, who then, in the course of the play, is going to pretend to be a woman. Okay? It has nothing to do with transgender, even though a lot of modern critics want to say that. It has nothing to do with gender bending. It's all about disguise. Okay? But here, raven and dove, dark and light. We're going to hear another description later on. Helena ought to be blonde. Hermia ought to be dark-haired. Hermia ought to have a darker complexion than Helena. Put it in modern terms, Hermia should have a tan, if nothing else. Helena should be like, white. This kind of white. The Elizabethan notion of beauty, white. Okay? Every portrait you'll see of Queen Elizabeth, her face is powdered. Like powdered sugar, white. Okay? She never has her mouth open. She's never smiling, and you can see her teeth, because they were black. She liked sugar. Once it was discovered and brought over from the Americas. So he says, who will not change a raven for a dove? The will of man is by his reason swayed. Aristotle's theory of the faculties of humanity, reason is the highest faculty. Logic, rationality. Will comes from the heart. It's volition. And the reason is supposed to direct the will. Beneath that are the passions. The passions, those are what you really have to keep control of. Okay? What do we call it when someone, on a fit of anger, kills somebody else?
A crime of passion.
It's a crime of passion. If a husband catches his wife in bed with his best friend and kills him, and it's not premeditated, it's called a crime of passion. The result of that, the sentence for that, is usually a little less than if it's first-degree murder. Because first-degree murder is what? It's reasoned, it's planned out, it's methodical. Okay? Reason says, the will of man is by reason swayed, and reason says you are the worthier made. Reason says that. No, I don't know about you. I don't know if any of you are married or not. I've been married coming up on 39 years. When I met the woman who became my wife, I did not look at her and go, where's my legal pad? I need to write down pros and cons. Hopefully, you don't get married that way. My opinion is it will not last. So, reason says you are the worthier made. Things growing are not ripe until their season. Okay, what the hell are you getting at, Lysander? So I, being young, till now, ripe not to reason. Meaning what?
He doesn't know who he truly loves because he was younger. The older he gets, the more he understands that he should love him.
Before I was young. When I loved Hermia, I was young. I wasn't ripe in reason. I was like a child. It's almost like he's echoing, almost. I'm not saying he is by any means. I'm just using this as an analogy. Like he's echoing St. Paul. When I was a child, I reasoned as a child, but now I'm a man and I reason as a man. Hermia was like a toy for a child. Helena, you're not a toy. You're the real thing. Shakespeare loves this image, by the way. He does it throughout the sonnets. In fact, it's not just Shakespeare. The Renaissance writers, this is a major trope, all right? I didn't know love until I met, forget all those other bodies I left behind. All those other women or men, you know. So I being young till now, ripe not to reason. That is, now I've ripened to reason. And reason says, we heard it before, Helena, you're the worthier maid. And touching now the point of human skill, what's skill? Literally, it's division. It's the ability to divide, to act out. Okay? It leads me to human skill. Reason becomes the marshal to my will. That is, reason says, giddy up. Will, marshal. It arranges in order. Okay? It sets its troops in rank. It leads me to your eyes, where I overlook love stories written in love's richest book. In other words, he's saying I could just sit here and look in your eyes for the rest of my life and I could read everything I need to know of love. Now, what was that? Dang. I mean, some guy sidles up to you in a bar and says this, you're probably going to go, wow, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one before.
I'd give him a shot.
Probably both this kind and the other kind. Whereas, Helena replies, wherefore was I to this keen mockery born?
You're making fun of me.
Bingo. Why are you doing this to me? Why is it keen? What is another word, a modern word for keen? We don't use keen very much. Sharp. Why is it sharp? I mean, it's like a dagger to the heart. Why is she out in the woods? Chasing her love. Who loves? Hermia. Who else loves Hermia? Why are you doing? When at your hands did I deserve this scorn? What does she think's happening?
They're making a fool of her.
He's playing a joke on her. Okay? So they go back and forth. She largely goes back and forth. Lysander says, oh, after Helena leaves, notice she's not on the stage. She's not Hermia. She doesn't know Hermia was even here. Sleep, Hermia, and never mayst thou come Lysander near. Okay? He leaves. Hermia wakes up. Help, help, Lysander. Why? She's had a dream. What a dream was here. Title, A Midsummer Night's Dream. There's lots of dreams going on. Lysander, look how I do quick with fear. Methought a serpent ate my heart away. And you sat smiling at his cruel prey. What was the serpent? Not literally, figuratively. What took away her heart? Helena. Because what's her heart? Lysander. And you sat smiling. What? Remove? Where are you? And she realizes he's not there. She leaves. Meanwhile, Titania, she's just sawing logs. Act 3, Scene 1. I hate this phrase. The clowns appear. Why do, I'm going to call them the rustics. I'm going to call them tradesmen. Why do the tradesmen show up in the wood?
To go practice.
Why are they practicing in the wood?
So nobody sees them?
Bingo. So nobody knows what they're going to do. Why? Because this play is some great, groundbreaking, earth-shaking, artistic endeavor? No, they just don't want anybody else to see. Okay? So they come in and they start doing their play. And what do we find out? Okay? We briefly, I didn't even discuss, the various characters. So you have a guy who's going to play moonshine. How does he portray moonshine? He holds a lantern. You have a guy who has to play wall. How's he going to play wall? It's pretty much what he does. Okay? And at some point in the play, within the play, there has to be a kiss between the two lovers, Pyramus and Thisbe, in the wall. How do you portray a chink, a hole in the wall? Well, wall's going to go from like this to like this. It represents hole in the wall. Okay? Utterly ludicrous. If it's a good production, you should be laughing on the floor.
Sounds like modern art.
National Shakespeare Company Festival did a production of this several years ago. My son was in it. Did a production of this several years ago. It is one of the best ones I've seen. And I've seen, like I said, 5 or 6 at the Globe. Didn't come close to the first one at the Globe. I've seen a couple at the Royal Shakespeare Company too. Those were generally pretty good. When Shakespeare does rip-roaringly funny comedy, nobody comes close. I mean, absolutely nobody. Okay? So, at some point, Bottom's going to have to leave the stage. Okay? But he'll come back. So, they're there, they're putting on their play, they're practicing, and Puck comes in. 8:49. What hempen homespuns have we swaggering here so near the cradle of the fairy queen? What does hempen homespuns mean? Hempen, like modern day hemp. Okay? Homespuns.
Is that their clothes?
Clothing made out of hemp. Okay? Why? Because they can't afford silk. They can't afford cotton, apparently, or wool, even. Okay? Just like you can make rope out of hemp, it's strong. You can make clothing out of hemp. This is telling us about their attire. Okay? Anne Bradstreet, first American poet, okay, woman, related to her, that's why I emphasize that. She describes in her poem, the author to her book, she describes her children, meaning her poems, as hempen, I think she says hempen, but at the very least it's homespun. All of her writing is all about the everyday, ordinary, mundane stuff of life. Keeping house, her children, her husband, gets a little bit bigger when the house burns down or a child dies in youth, etc., etc. So what hempen homespuns have we swaggering here so near the cradle of the fairy queen? What? A play toward? They're going to put on a play? I'll be an auditor. and Act 2, perhaps, if I see cause. What did the other fairy say about Puck when they first entered in Act 2? Aren't you the one who likes to play tricks on people? And then Puck goes on, oh yeah, and describes what he does. So now he's going to watch and maybe get involved. Okay? So they go, we hear the play start. Bottom as Pyramus, just to give you an example of what a moron. Thisbe, the flowers of Odious savors sweet. Now, this isn't Bottom's fault. This is the text he has. Odious savors sweet. Ladies, how would you like it if your significant other came up to you and said, man, your odor is great today? Yeah, you probably go, see ya, and exit. Shakespeare's Sonnet 130, My Mistress' Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun, has a line in it about his mistress's, the breath that from his mistress's mouth reeks. Okay? My all-time favorite line in Shakespeare's sonnets. So they go back and forth. And Bottom leaves, because he has to exit the stage. And when he comes back in, very bottom, line after line 97, enter Puck and Bottom as Pyramus with the ass head. So when Bottom leaves, Puck goes up to him and transforms him. He doesn't put a papier-mâché head on his head. Within the work of the play, in our world, yes, that's what you have to do. But within the fiction of the world of the play, Bottom now has human feet, human torso, human arms and hands, and a head of an ass. Big long ears, big long snout, and it's all furry. Okay? When he comes in, flute is speaking. As true as horse that yet would never tire, and in comes a guy with an ass's head, kind of like a horse. Bottom, if I were fair, Thisbe, I were only thine. Quince, starts yelling, oh, monstrous, monstrous. Okay. So Puck says, I'll follow you, I'll lead you about a round, a dance round, all right? Through bog, through bush, through brake, through briar, sometimes a horse I'll be, sometimes a hound. And so he scares him around. Snout, Bottom, thou art changed. What do I see on thee, Bottom? What do you see? You see an ass head of your own? Quince, bless thee, Bottom, bless thee, thou art translated. Translated? What does he mean?
He shifted.
Yeah, but that's not what
Transformed.
he means. Transformed. This is a malapropism. Even though the word malapropism did not exist at this time. It gets invented by Congreve. I think it's William Congreve. During the Restoration, has a character named Mrs. Malaprop, who always says the wrong words. Read Much Ado About Nothing. The character of... He's a night guard, whose name is now escaping me, constantly speaks in malapropisms. It'll come to me in the middle of the night, probably. So, they all leave with only Bottom on the stage and Titania asleep. And Bottom says, I see their knavery. This is to make an ass of me, to frighten me. So he says, but I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to walk here and I'm going to sing. And so he sings. And Bottom sings horribly. He's not on pitch, not on key. He's just... And Titania awakes. Now, Titania ought to be swimsuit model. The ideal, whatever that ideal is. The ideal of beauty, okay? What angel wakes me from my flowery bed? Angels were supposed to have the voice of an angel, And but I'm singing here, those are cops, and he keeps singing. She says, I pray thee, gentle mortal, sing again. Mine ear is much enamored of thy note, so is mine eye enthralled to thy shape. What's enthralled mean? Spelled entranced. Means both of those. Enthrall to. To be a thrall is to be a slave to. Her eye is enslaved to his shape. Why? Good use. She doesn't know that. And thy fair virtue's force perforce doth move me on the first view to sway, to say, to swear, I love thee. Okay? Fair virtue's force. Remember the other day I had up the Ptolemaic system? You had Earth surrounded by 9 spheres. Outside that 9th sphere is the Empyrean where God dwells. That image also gets used to describe not the universe, but us and our interaction with others. Another person can be like God, the primum mobile, as Aristotle called him, which means what? Prime mover, first mover. So another person can become the thing that moves us, or the virtue in another person can become the thing that moves us. That implies we're kind of powerless against it. Again, the phrase we use to describe the act of becoming in love with someone, falling in love. You don't intentionally fall. You don't have control over it. So, she says, thy fair virtue's force, that's this prime mover, does what? It moves me, she's now a sphere, on the first view. Love at first sight, to say, I love you. Bottom. Methinks, mistress, you should have little reason for that. Now, what did Lysander tell Helena when he woke up and saw her? Reason says you are the fairer maid. Okay? And he says the will should follow reason. What does she say moves him? Reason moves her. Reason? No. Bottom. You should have little reason for that. For what? For saying, I love you. Notice what is coming out of Bottom's mouth. This is the deep and profound and utter truth. Should Titania, essentially like a goddess, love Bottom? Especially as Bottom is now. What is he now?
That was a donkey.
Ass-head, human body. Think of that great chain of being. So we said you had angels up here, humans, beasts, fairies are up here between angels. What is Bottom now? Metaphorically. He's moved downward a little bit. He's not fully human. He's not entirely a beast. What part of him is beastly? His reason, his mind. He lacks those human capabilities. What is it? What is meant when Genesis says Adam and Eve are made in the image of God? It's not this. It's not hands and feet and ears and nose. It's the human faculties. He says, you have little reason to love me. A truer word has never been spoken. And yet, to say the truth, reason and love keep little company together nowadays. Just pause there for a minute. Reason and love don't do what? They don't go hand in hand these days. What's these days? Okay. The days within the world of the poem and the auditors out there in the globe listening. They probably hear that line, and if anybody pays attention to it, they would have to say, you know, that's true. Because look at those two people over there. You know, she's gorgeous, and he's some funny-looking little dweeby guy. Okay? I always use this example. You can look him up online if you want. Look for, what's his first name? M-N-U. Guy named, last name, Mnuchin. He was
Steve Mnuchin?
Stephen Mnuchin, thank you.
Former
I don't know if it's PH or E or V. Former OMB, Office of Management and Budget, Trump White House. Kind of a plain looking, nerdy guy, dark hair, big glasses, 5 o'clock shadow all the time. And he's like, you know, he looks like me about 5'7", 5'8". And his wife, I'm not kidding, is like a walking, talking Barbie. Just every, you know, how did this happen, you know? Reason and love keep little company. The more the pity that some honest neighbors will not make them friends. What is Bottom saying there? Reason and love should what? To use a word that is used all too often these days, they should work in synergy. Sin together, energy, action. They should work together. Reason and love should go hand in glove. It should make sense, in other words. Titania, thou art as wise as thou art beautiful. Now, the way that's usually read or understood, often read or understood, is, well, how beautiful is Bottom? He's not. He's a hideous monstrosity. So, if he's a hideous monstrosity, then how wise is he? He's not. It's the opposite. And yet, in her eyes, he is beautiful. In her eyes, he is wise. See, I think Shakespeare, because he's such a blanking genius, can mean both things with that. Is Bottom wise? Is that little statement by Bottom wise? Yes or no? I think it is profoundly wise. Okay? Deeply wise. Just like when Polonius in Hamlet gives his advice to his son, Laertes, before he goes off to Paris, everything Polonius says, it's like it's out of the book of Proverbs. I mean, it's just one little witticism, but profoundly deep after another. I don't think there's any bit of advice he gives there that you could say, well, that's wrong. You might say, well, that shouldn't be the case, but the world we live in, you know, is different than that. It is the case, all right? You'll see when we get to it. We will get to Hamlet. Thou art as wise as thou art beautiful. Not so neither. Why doesn't he think so? Well, he's not been transformed the way she has. But if I had wit enough to get out of this wood, I have enough to serve mine own turn. That is, when I get out of this wood, ooh, somebody's going to pay. She goes, no. You are not leaving this wood. Remember, she is now enthralled to his eyes. She said, no, thou shalt remain here, whether thou will or no. And we're back at the medieval notion of the fairies and the idea of a changeling. I'm going to capture this human and take him off. He's going to be my plaything. She says, I'm a spirit of no common rate. Think hyperbole. The spirit of no common rate means, that's an example of Shakespearean use of Old English literary technique, which was still in use in Shakespeare's day, litotes, L-I-T-O-T-E-S. It means extreme understatement. There's an old English poem, The Dream of the Rood, where we're told Christ's body is left with little company in the tomb. How little company? He's alone. That's how little. It's extreme understatement, okay? So, spirit of no common rate means I got power. You will stay. Okay? So, other fairies come in and serve their needs, and Bottom gets hand-fed and kind of enjoying it. 3-2. Titania and the others leave. Okay? Oberon comes in. And this was the scene that I mentioned when we first started talking about Shakespeare, that the Scottish actor Paul Higgins came in the play, leaned down to my wife standing there like this, at the center of the globe stage, looking at him, drop dead gorgeous, great accent, and says, right 6 inches away, I wonder if Titania be wigged. And my wife said, no. 3,000 sets of eyes. And he just starts ad-libbing. He doesn't say, then what was it that came in her eye? He goes, no. And she goes, yes. Then what it was that, and they talked for like 3 minutes. Then what it was that next came in her eye, which she must dote on in extremity. And I think my wife actually said, a man with an ass's head. And he was just like, no, etc. And just before he gets up, he winks at her and points at her. She still thinks about it, okay? It's just not fair. It's just not fair that people like that, and Hemsworth and Sean Connery, even though he's dead, she would still kiss him. Here comes my messenger. Puck comes in. And Puck says, oh, my mistress with a monster is in love. Near to her close and consecrated bower, and he tells what happens. Okay? Skipping a bunch. Oberon, line 35. This falls out better than I could devise. But hast thou yet latched the Athenian's eyes with the love juice as I did bid thee? Notice, he's not only concerned about getting even with his wife, Titania. What else?
I think he's a little low-key, probably smitten with Helena and wants her to be happy, I guess, maybe?
Could be. We are told that he likes pretty human women, okay? Favors them, just like she likes pretty human men. Could be. What's a more charitable way of putting that? He wants to right a wrong. How Demetrius treated Helena was wrong. Okay? He says, yeah, I found him. That's taken two. And Demetrius and Hermia come in. Oberon. Stand close, that is, come near me. This is the Athenian. Puck. This is the woman, but not this the man. And they stand aside, and Demetrius and Hermia come in. Okay? So, let's get the story straight. Beginning of the play, Demetrius loved Hermia. Hermia loved Lysander. Lysander loved Hermia. Helena loved Demetrius. Now, Demetrius loves Hermia. Hermia loves Lysander. Lysander loves Helena. Helena loves Demetrius. Everything's totally effed up. Okay? So Demetrius and Hermia go back and forth. She leaves. Demetrius falls down and goes to sleep. Oberon steps forth, even though we're not told that he steps forth. What hast thou done? What's the import of his question?
You must have
Yeah. What did you do? Thou hast mistaken quite and laid the love juice on some true love's sight. Of thy misprision must perforce ensue some true love turned, and not a false turned true. How dare you make a true love now go false? Oberon seems to be concerned with making sure that the path of true love is not crossed, that it does run smooth. Puck, hey, fate o'errules. That one man holding troth, a million fail, confounding oath on oath. What? Some true love turned and not a false turned true. Then fate overrules. That is, fate controls all. Don't think 1595 when Shakespeare wrote the play, or late 1599, early 1600 when the play was first performed and published. Think ancient Greece. What controls everything except for the gods? Fate. See, in the ancient Greek system, I need a little board. You got the gods, you got fate, and you got puny us down here. The gods can control us. The gods can see what fate is going to do. That's how they can prophesy about the future. Okay? They don't control fate, and fate doesn't control them. So, then fate overrules that. One man holding troth, holding faith, being faithful. A million fail, confounding oath on oath. What is he really saying? There's one man in a million who is faithful to his spouse. That's what? That's rough, man. Now, is that Shakespeare? Is that Shakespeare saying, you know, if you find someone faithful in your life, you better stick with that person, because most don't. A lot of people read it that way. Okay? Oberon, go about the wood, find Helena of Athens. Okay? By some illusion, bring her here. I'll charm his eyes against she do appear. So that, bring her here so that I can have her right next to this guy, Demetrius, and I'll charm his eyes. What? Against doesn't mean opposing her. It means when she comes towards him. So that he will now do what? He will love her. He puts the ointment in his eye and says, when his love he doth espy, let her shine as glorious lie as the Venus of the sky. When thou wakes, if she be by, beg of her for remedy. Let her be the remedy for what? What do we need remedies for? Illness. Love sickness. In other words, she will be the only thing that can solve your problem. It's the cliche now line in the Tom Cruise film Jerry Maguire. You complete me. Puck says, here's Helena and the youth that I thought was the one you wanted. Shall we their fond pageant see? Fond, foolish, silly, asinine. Lord, what fools these mortals be. One of the all-time quoted lines from Shakespeare's plays. Oberon, stand aside. So Puck says, then will two, back up. The noise they make, Oberon says, will cause Demetrius to awake. Ooh, then will two at once woo one, right? So Helena's going to be there. Demetrius is going to wake up, and he's going to be in love with Helena, but Lysander's there too. They're both going to be in love with Helena. That must needs be sport alone, and all those things do best, and those things do best please me that befall preposterously. That don't make any sense. Okay? Lysander and Helena come in. They go back and forth. Demetrius wakes up, refers to Helena, O Helen, goddess, nymph, perfect, divine. To what, my love, shall I compare thine eye? Your eyes. Crystal is muddy. Oh, how ripe, blah, blah, blah. And she just lets go on him. Because not only does she think now that Lysander is spoofing her, but Demetrius is in on the act. Okay? So the three of them start going at it, hammer and tongs. Hermia comes in. Okay? What are we reaching within the kind of the structure of the play? Think of that pyramid, whether you're talking tragedy or inverted. We're reaching that climax where the greatest emotional tension, because this isn't happy stuff, right? So, Hermia comes in. And so now we have Hermia, Lysander, Hermia, Helena speaking, and Helena wants to know, Hermia, what are you doing? Why are you part of this? Lo, she is one of this confederacy. They have plotted against me, Helena thinks. Now I perceive they have conjoined all three to fashion this false sport in spite of me. And look what she says. Hermia, we used to be tight. We were close friends. We shared bed in our school days. Nothing, no lesbian action going on. She just means we slept in the same bed. We shared our hearts to each other. Okay? Why are you doing this? Hermia, line 222 or so. I am amazed at your passionate words. I scorn you not. It seems that you scorn me. Haven't you set Lysander on me to follow me, praise my eyes, etc.? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Okay? I do. I understand not what you mean by this. I do. In other words, try to. Persever, counterfeit, sad looks, make mouths upon me when I turn my back, wink each at each other. Okay, has she seen any of them doing any of this? If they make looks at each other behind her back, then obviously she doesn't see that. Okay? So she says, end of that little speech, 243 and following, 'tis partly my own fault, which death or absence soon shall remedy. I'm either going to leave or I'm going to kill myself. That'll stop the play. Lysander, stay. No, whoa, stop. Hear my excuse. That is, let me explain. Okay? So, they talk back and forth. And Lysander says to Hermia, 256 or 257, away, you Ethiop. Footnote, referring to Hermia's relatively dark hair and complexion. Okay? Now, relatively dark complexion means darker skinned. It's possible. Not saying it's the case. It's probably not likely possible, but it's possible. We're talking blackface. Okay? Moorish, in other words, North African. Away, you Ethiop. So, Hermia is trying to go after Lysander, and he says, hang off, thou cat, thou burr, vile thing, let loose, or I will shake thee from me like a serpent. Why are you so rude? What changes this, sweet love? Thy love out, tawny tartar, out, loathed medicine. Not the medicine that will resolve your ill, but the medicine that will make you purge yourself. Okay? That's why it's loathed. So they go back and forth. Helen is involved a little bit. And Hermia says, 271, what can you do me greater harm than this? Than hate? Hate me. What news, my love? Am not I Hermia? Are not you Lysander? I am as fair as she. And then Hermia turns to Helena. Okay, what has Helena thought has been going on? They're all playing this joke on her. Now, Hermia, when Lysander says, I do hate thee and love Hermia, Hermia now turns on Helena. Oh, me, you juggler, you canker blossom, you thief of love. What, have you come by night and stolen my love's heart from him? What? Have you no modesty, no maiden shame, no touch of bashfulness? What, will you tear impatient answers from my gentle tongue? Are you going to force me to say something? Fie. And then she goes one step farther. You counterfeit, you puppet, you. What does she mean by you counterfeit, you puppet? You actor, you pretender, you're playing. Puppet, somebody else is moving you. Hermia hears those words, and they like touch something deep within her soul. Any of you remember the song Randy Newman wrote? Long time ago now. You would only know it by parents or something. Short people got no reason to live. My daughter, one of my daughters, is like 5'1"3/4, because that 3/4 is important, right? She has this shirt that line's going to be referred to in a moment that has it on it. Hermia, puppet? Aye, that way goes the game. Now I perceive she hath made compare between our statures. She hath urged her height, and with her personage, her tall personage, her height forsooth, she hath prevailed with him. And are you grown so high in his esteem because I am so dwarfish and so low? Did anybody say she was dwarfish?
She's insecure.
Or there's a big chip, and it's called being short on her shoulder. How low am I, thou painted maypole? Speak, how low am I? I am not yet so low, but that my nails can reach. And in that production in 2002, Hermia was kind of short, but boy, she was athletic. And she jumps like from where I am to just into Helena. Just fantastic. Okay? Helena, oh, I pray you, gentlemen, save me from, You perhaps may think because she is something lower than myself that I can match her because she's smart. Lower? Really? Again? Okay? Lysander calls her towards the bottom of that page, line 328. Get you gone, you dwarf, you minimus, like mini-me, of hindering not grass made, you bead, you acorn. Okay. Demetrius leaves. Lysander leaves. Demetrius leaves. Why? They're going to fight each other. I know it's time to go, but I'm going to finish this real quickly. Hermia is there. Helena leaves. Hermia leaves. Oberon comes in. This is thy negligence. Still thou mistakest, or else commits thy knaveries willfully. Still doesn't mean yet until this point. It means always. You always screw up, Puck. Or, what's the other option? You intentionally do it. Puck. Accident. You said Athenian garments But notice how he finishes his speech, and we'll stop with this. I esteem their jangling a sport. It's fun to watch humans fight over love. Okay, we'll stop there. I'm going to go ahead and put up today, I hope, a quiz over Acts 1 through 3 of Midsummer Night's Dream. One comment about the quiz. Somebody asked me something. Unless your response to the questions in the quiz exactly matched what I put down as the answer, D12 marks it as wrong. Okay? It's very literal. So, if your answer is correct, but you use a different word or a different spelling, I go through every quiz, unless it's true, false, or multiple choice. I go through every quiz and grade every question individually. All right? I'll change all the future ones so there won't be an automatic grade, but you will see the correct answers for all the things, just to make that clear. Okay, wake up.